Prepare yourself for a sprawling discussion on just about anything, where critical thinking meets pop culture in a collision of mind-bending proportions. Please secure all neurons and prepare for full frontal cortex. It's time for Incoherent Ramblings.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode, exciting and new, come aboard, of Incoherent Ramblings. This is episode 031, otherwise known as Climate Change. I'm your host, Joey Schammel. With me today is...
the ever-cool Paul Hottinger.
The hot Cale Anderson.
And the always charming Daryl George.
Why did you guys know?
I was going to say the lukewarm.
But I'm not Luke.
I was going to say, why do you guys all have adjectives?
Because it's the global warming. I'm cool, he's hot, and he's charming.
That's Daryl.
I had to come up with something.
The weather today is charming.
Daryl. That's Daryl. He's got this little thing where he can't recognize patterns.
Exactly.
All right, so we are working on climate change today. It's the first challenge that we've given out where we're looking at something pretty controversial, and I've challenged everybody to convince me that it's opposite from where I am.
First time we looked at something controversial.
That there was a challenge involved in.
Okay.
Challenge! Our email is...
Challenge accepted.
That's not our email.
That's not our email, right?
Although, that would be a cool email.
Challenge accepted at iamrambling.com.
Okay.
We need to add that now.
Show at iamrambling.com or put our name in front of it. And you can talk to us, all those people who listen out there. Okay, so let's get started today. Did I forget something? Oh,
Sponsor.
Our sponsor for today is 30th Anniversary Transformers Generation Sandstorm, because he has a sandstorm, and there's sandstorm and global warming. It's causing sandstorm.
No, it's not.
He's talking about how the general climate change is causing more extreme weather. That's what you're talking about.
No, there are literally sandstorms.
Okay. That works for me.
Okay.
Dude, have you seen Dune?
Totally.
Yeah.
Enough said. Game over. All right, everybody.
Here we go with the pre-rebel.
This is about the time when people tune out. They don't want to hear that crap.
So last week we talked. Yeah, we're gonna have a section with that. Last week we talked about 2 weeks ago we talked about different forms of future power. Ooh, and one we talked about was fusion. But we said cold fusion doesn't exist because basically cold fusion is the ability to create energy by fusing atoms together, and we can't do it without wasting more energy first. Until now.
This was supposed to be my pre-ramble.
No, you didn't. You weren't ready.
You weren't ready.
Dropped
bad.
the balls.
No.
And if you're not careful, I'm firing you from being dick man this week.
No.
Daryl loses.
Then I would be
lose his dick.
Retired dick man.
He'd be swinging from side to side.
You know! You are not dick joke man this week.
It's a hard job, dude.
No! No! You guys both lost your dick
we're both
joking
limp
abilities.
now. We're limp now.
You know, if I'm not working in the public, I would be a private dick.
That's good. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
So, cold fusion, or fusion, has actually sort of been not cold.
That's fusion.
Fusion.
Fusion has been accomplished with
Cold fusion makes me
slightly enough energy to show that
fusion has happened a lot. It's happening right now in the sun.
Okay, no, I mean,
It's getting more.
yeah. Why don't you take this and go?
laboratory.
No, it is finally we are getting a positive energy from a experimental fusion reaction.
Yes,
And that's interesting because when I practice fusion, I don't get more energy out of it. I'm usually tired.
fusion meaning sex.
Anything.
Now, anything banging together.
Anything fusing.
So
When I eat fusion, I get gas.
So one of the
That's pretty good.
one of the places in the U.S. that's one of the federal funded places in the U.S.
Ex-federal funded.
They we'll get to that.
Temporarily unfunded.
They shot like 200 lasers at a little bit of hydrogen isotope, and they were able to get enough energy out of it, more energy than they would have spent. But
At least they think so.
they think so. But they didn't get enough energy to cover the energy from the lasers. I just read that.
They didn't?
No, they didn't. But they're close. They're like this close, this far.
Well, then that's...
But that's minimal.
Kale.
That doesn't count. That's not what they said.
I read it. It said...
Was that the latest news release?
No, that was the one with the government shutdown.
Oh,
let me look it up real quick.
What was it? What did they?
No, but I
remember.
I heard reports about a week ago.
What?
What did they report?
That was the situation.
Oh,
So
I
maybe there's
don't
something.
know. It was one of my things I subscribed to on Facebook, and it, when I saw it, then I clicked on it. But
Somebody jumped the gun.
No, that's the thing is that if that's correct, then they're misreporting because they shouldn't say that unless they've accounted for the lasers.
That's one thing you got to depend on, though.
And they would have. They're freaking scientists.
They
won't account for them.
Science a lot.
Yeah,
so,
but they need more funding.
That wouldn't surprise me.
They need more funding.
And we're part of the media, and we just misreported it, right?
We're not part of the media. We're entertainment.
That's the new media.
New media.
The new media is report now and retract later.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
While the NIF has passed the break-even point, it is just shy of reaching ignition when nuclear fusion produces as much energy as is supplied by the lasers.
See.
So they did reach.
That was the status I heard about over a week ago.
Okay, they did reach the ability to be even.
I understand what they're saying now.
But they're
so
working on
they did achieve positive fusion
from just the fusion,
and that's
itself.
what they were saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they did. But
so
they didn't cover the laser.
Technically, they've still done it.
But it was such a small amount; it didn't cover the laser.
Well,
power.
it was only like 90.
But that's the huge issue. The sun has its own engine to power this because of the mass of it and the gravity pulling everything in. So in a way, it's kind of like free fusion. It happens due to the pressures and the heat from the friction and everything.
Natural.
However, the caveat to this is the NIF team has been furloughed as a result of the U.S. government shutdown, which began October 1st, and is not releasing updates to the press. So it could be the biggest scientific... What's the word? Discovery in years, and they shut it down.
So this kind of thing happens in baby steps usually. So this is another step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, that's all it is.
I still stand by the idea that maybe we'll never be able to cover the energy used by the lasers we put into it or whatnot.
On the floor.
But I could be wrong about that. I don't have... Hey, what?
It's not mine.
What do you do? What?
I'm sorry, I thought you wanted a drink. I was trying to point to it. It's on the floor.
Oh, I thought you were saying, put Daryl's phone on the floor. I was like, okay, Google.
Joey just nearly threw my brand new phone. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's the pre-ramble.
And it's going, I gotta take a lead right now. I'm holding it for the whole episode.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to refill my Mountain Chill.
This is exciting.
And
Here's the fusion, baby.
This is where editing would be handy.
This is how we roll, man. We're generic, man. We're Mountain.
Quiet.
Joey just took a frothy one. That's all that was.
Doing it.
That's a lot of head there.
Thank you. What? No! No! You are banned from dick jokes. God. Daryl, you're not holding up your end. I'm going to have to rehire him. He's doing pretty good.
You just did it.
Joey should have gotten a cold, stiff drink.
You held up his end?
But you pointed it out. No!
Oh, pointing it out. Pointing it out?
Oh my god.
Okay.
Joey, I think you're
I'll point it out.
backwards.
I'll put your eye out.
I'm going to be on the wrong side of your ear.
No, you're on the right side. You say this to me all the time. See, L.
Oh,
If you need the Mountain Chilling, just tell me to reach around and I'll grab it.
Okay, good.
Okay. So. Climate change. Here's my view, and then we'll go around and we'll talk to everyone else's view, because more or less they have the opposite view of me, but let me say I have not researched this. This view is not
As
really...
if we have.
I know.
Well, I know, and that's kind of...
Incoherent ramblings.
That's
Where we
kind of-
talk about stuff, but we don't research.
Yeah.
The thing is,
That's
I
about right.
researched this in 2003.
I'm saying that kind of
Just
flippantly.
before the actual jump in the temperature happened.
So, as with most of our episodes, it's going to be a discussion on our opinions.
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
And whatever
And I just
else
gotta-
we detour around.
I want to say, I was telling Joey earlier that it was, when he brought this to us, this challenge, it was warm, and now it's been a week later, and it's cold.
Yep.
I would... You know what?
And so I blame the Bush administration.
Maybe we should change the name of this from Incoherent Ramblings to Incoherent Detours.
Yeah.
Okay,
Go.
so, the way that I've seen or how I feel about climate change, and once again, this is from what I've heard, and first of all, climate change, it's always also known as global warming, has always seemed weird to me because it's a science thing.
Are you done with the qualifiers now?
Yeah, but I think global warming is different than climate change.
Yeah, the thing is, it's a big difference between those two.
Harry, I don't
Huge.
know. What do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Okay, there's two different conversations going on right now. Daryl and I are insulting each other, and you two are talking about the subject.
No, we weren't. I was talking about huge tracts of land.
Oh. Anyway.
We're way off topic. That's fine.
That's new. All right. So,
So global warming...
Well, you qualified the hell out of it. Now tell us what you're going to say.
I'm trying to figure out what you meant by I was qualifying it.
Because you're like, I never researched it, and this is just my opinion. But, you know, like you're leading up to saying something by qualifying it, by saying, don't hold me to it.
Oh, okay, well, let me put it this way.
Talking about,
you can hold me to it, just don't expect it to be based off of anything.
Don't expect to get a rise out of it.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Don't pass laws of what we say.
Yeah.
Okay, who's dick joke man right now?
You are.
But you guys are like trying to take my...
We're not saying anything.
We're your unemployment line. When you get...
Look,
you're losing money, you lost your job.
This is the border right here. You guys are south of it, and you're trying to take my job, all right?
So you don't want me to put mine up here like this?
You don't want us to take your dick jokes?
Lay it out there.
That was okay, but you can do better.
You guys can rock out with your cocks out all day.
That's better. That's good.
Yeah, that's not really a joke.
Climate change!
Okay, right. Go.
All right, so I find it strange that climate change is such a political issue, but I guess if you think about it, it makes sense because it affects jobs or it affects...
What's a lot of money.
What's it called? Government
spending.
Yeah, but there's a word for it. It's policy. It affects government policy, and I think that's probably why it's become so political. But in the end, it should be scientific. And so, what gets me about this is, even though I feel like climate change isn't a big problem or a big issue,
that's just the problem. You just said feel.
Ah, good one. But that's just it. I'm not one of the scientists. I'm not one of the ones looking it up. So. Even though I feel that way, I know there's definitely two sides to this. But usually in science, there's facts on one side or the other. So I might be getting a lot of spin, and that's why I want you guys to let me know where is the science, because I want to follow the science. Each side says that they have the science to back it up. But if you're listening to one side, they say they have the science. Listen to the other side, they say they have the science. So that's the problem I'm having. Now, personally, I've always been under the opinion that the Earth is so huge that we really probably can't affect it too much, and if we do affect it, it's going to be more of a problem for us than the Earth. We're not going to destroy the Earth. The Earth will be fine.
Well, I know
go on.
But I would say one of the cons against climate change is that the Earth is, because it's so big, and that the carbon gases, the CO2 and all that gets absorbed by the ocean. The heat gets absorbed by the ocean, the plants and all that. There's so much that the Earth will just take care of itself. Mm-hmm. So we're not destroying it. It just goes through its cycle and sucks all this in.
And that's how I've always felt, is that the Earth is going to do what it's going to do, and we have to adapt for what we need to do, which might mean,
I want to point out that I think you made a bit of a straw man argument there, because I don't think the general consensus is that the Earth is going to be ruined by this.
Okay.
But the main concern is what it's going to do to economies, the ocean levels, seafront property, things like that. A lot of people could be affected by this if it turns out to be true. I don't think they're necessarily saying that everything's going to die, but it's going to affect the trajectory of where the Earth goes.
I'll be honest, I think the reason that I'm automatically on the side of the whole there's not really going to be climate change, there's not a problem. I think it's because I don't like the hippie liberal view of the, if you ever watch that South Park episode of them being so smug because they're owning the Prius type thing.
Good for you.
Good for you. Yeah. I really don't want to jump on that bandwagon because it's popular now. It's the type of thing where in the 70s it was apparently global, or the next ice age was going to happen because of, man-made and everything, because of man-made problems or whatever, that they were going to cause the next ice age. Now it's global warming, and everybody's, stop. I don't want to jump on that bandwagon. But now they're saying it's not global warming, it's climate change. So now it's both. It's just very confusing.
Well, global warming was the term of the Earth the Earth temperature rising. Right. So, I mean, I was reading an article on global warming, the climate change this week, and with global warming, it said that it raised like one degree overall, and which seems pretty natural, I guess, in the cycle that we're in. Whereas climate change is the effect of
that was the ice.
Melting from
the polar ice caps are melting on it. But climate change is like an overall, where it's the weather. It's not just the warmth of the planet, but it's also we're getting, if there's more hurricanes or more of a dry spell and stuff.
Well, that's what bothers me is
a tornado.
It was global warming. Then they're like, I feel like, and once again, I feel like they had problem proving it, and so they said, oh, well, it's not global warming, it's climate change. Like, they're looking for a reason that we're doing all this bad stuff to the Earth so they can be all, let's stop using gasoline, let's start doing all these, liberal hippie type things, because that's their agenda. They want to do that, as opposed to what's the science. I mean, did they just change it because they were like, oh, global warming, not working, let's call it climate change, and then we'll still...
I think it changed because we actually gained more data, a lot more data on what's going on. And as we've discussed in previous podcasts, is that what you need to do is look at who are the experts in that field. What are the majority of those people saying?
And what
are they saying, Daryl?
To play devil's advocate, you could say that everyone in a field could be completely deluded and following the same.
But what is the likelihood of that
trajectory? Well, that's the thing. It also could be a conspiracy where everyone wants to get grant money.
And what's the likelihood of that?
Again, it
very,
would be
very likely.
It would be
very likely.
It would have to be of a conspiracy of a scope that's so big that it would probably collapse under its own.
Well, I'm not looking so much as conspiracy is the problem. What about if it's because it's a political issue and because there's so many strong sides on it? What if anybody who's researching it is taking a side? Well, so automatically their stuff is biased.
Well, that's the thing, though. Good science is done where the biases are accounted for and they're taken out.
So where's the good science?
I think most of the best science on it is, if you talk with the community of climate scientists, they're almost uniformly in agreement that it's anthropomorphic, it's happening.
We are significantly.
The thing is, you'll find, and the thing is, when people have an interest to speak against that happening, they generally find a few of the people who are not in line with everyone else. Because what natural community is completely monolithic, especially in science, right? Some people are going to have their own pet theories, and they're going to be pursuing their version of the data, and they might be employing bias too by, say, cherry picking. Like, if we look at the years between
1940 and 1970,
those are the kind of popular ones to.
That's the one because that's when there was actually a cold spell.
Yeah, there's like.
Well, I mean, look at the Dust Bowl.
So the thing is, you can choose arbitrary numbers in any statistical situation and make the data look like it's giving you results that say what you want them to say. Yeah. As long as you choose arbitrary spots that are just at your choosing.
Well, that's
bias.
That's one of the most favorite one of people who say it's not happening. That's the one they try to show that it was.
So if you actually go back to as far back as recorded data has been accurate and we can depend upon it, and you look at the trend from then until present, there's a clear trend that there's a warming happening, climate-wise. But if you choose just a section of it, one section versus another, you might get totally different results. So the thing is, some people focus on the sections that give you the cooling result, and they say, oh, look, global warming isn't real.
Right, but then I would take the opposite look and say that since recorded history a couple hundred years based on cycles of the Earth is also doing the same thing, we don't have enough information to say, we've got recorded history of 100 years, maybe a little more, when the Earth is, billions of years old. Right. So
it's
that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, we don't have data from...
Well, there's one thing that I can say about that, too, is that it's... well, let me just get this out there then you guys.
No, go ahead.
Okay, it is a very short period in geological time. Because we're talking about the Earth being 5 billion years old, as you said. However, we're seeing a surprising amount of movement in warming during that time. Mm-hmm. And it's coinciding with us liberating a lot of sequestered carbon into the atmosphere. There's a correlation there. Not necessarily, correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation.
Right, yeah.
But we have a pretty solid working theory about how the carbon in the atmosphere would lead to more warming, and that we, as an industrial society, have released it, going back to about the point where we started recording global temperatures. So there is this correlation there, and there's more and more studies and evidence that seems to back up that it actually is a causation, not just a false correlation.
Well, you got to look at the ice cores, because the ice cores that they're drilling down and bringing up from the Antarctic and the Arctic, they can tell what the what the temperatures were, and they actually can go back 2 millennia and construct, and it shows everything is going up and down until, like I said, about 1998, that it really starts to rise, and by 2004 you can see it's just starting to really shoot up. And so it's just recently where we can now see the exponential growth rate of global warming.
Okay, now I see that graph, and that's something that would convince me. That looks like something that's, I mean, it's just a graph, obviously. I'd have to look and make sure that it was, something based on something solid. But if that graph was, accurate based on something like you're saying about the ice core, it seems to make sense that we are affecting it, because that's pretty straightforward, pretty plain.
Well, I'm going to get to a point here also that I think is a pretty major indictment against people who deny global warming. But some people will attack the science of how do we know that this ice core analysis is actually accurate, and we can really tell the temperatures. And the thing is, some people attack that science, and to me it's rather reminiscent of how, say, creationists attack evolution. Because what they're doing is they're saying, how does carbon dating, how do we know that it's actually accurate? Right. Now, the thing is, there are error bars on carbon dating that, scientists
plus or minus,
Right, plus or minus so much time. We know that it's a bit inaccurate. You can't get it perfect. But it gives us a kind of ballpark estimate of how old something is.
And the ballpark is pretty far back.
But if you're a young Earth creationist, you're going to look at that and say you're in denial of evolution, and you're going to look at that evidence and try to poke holes in, well, carbon dating doesn't actually work, right? And some people look at these ice cores and they say this analysis of distant past temperatures also doesn't work. And it's you actually one thing in an argument about science is I want to just point out that nothing is set in stone. There could be discoveries made that prove that these ice cores aren't giving us the accurate readings we think they are. The error bars could be bigger than we believe they are. But until we have evidence to prove that, I would say that we have to kind of look at what people have found in that regard and just kind of take it for what it is. That it's our best guess, our best analysis at present of how it works.
Well, I was more like Joey, just, I don't know, back 10 or 15 years ago. It's just the mountain of evidence is just really being packed on and on that shows that something's going on.
And it's a lot like the creationist evolution debate. And the thing is, I think that we have a misapplication of the word skeptic sometimes, where people will say they're global warming skeptics, or they're 9/11 skeptics, where they don't believe the official story. But I think that in the spirit of skepticism, people who are real skeptics follow the evidence and will be more likely to believe people who have done serious scientific inquiry that's very detailed and specific. So I would basically say, instead of being skeptics, they should be called deniers, just like creationists are evolution deniers. There's a big mountain of evidence, like Cale talked about, and it keeps getting better and better. Yeah. The more and more scientists back each other up as they do new experiments and repeat each other's experiments, and it's all out in the open.
They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're verifying, they're checking each other.
Well, exactly. So it's peer reviewed. They're basically building this case that's becoming stronger and stronger over time. Evolution still might not be correct. it's very unlikely.
But it's our best bet so far.
And the thing is, global warming may not be correct, but it's our best bet so far. And the evidence keeps getting stronger and stronger by the day.
Yeah. It's the best.
So looking at the whole, because obviously I'm someone, who's going to believe the ice core samples. I'm not one of those people who would say, ice core, blah, blah. Because once again, I don't have an agenda here. I'm not trying to say that the way I see things is true. I'm not even sure. That's why I wanted you guys to tell me about this. That ice core thing is the best evidence I've seen so far. So here's the thing, though, and this is where I probably have the problems, is let's say you guys are all saying the mountains of evidence is correct, so I'm assuming that you've looked at a lot of things. But because there's now agenda based on global warming, and there's a group of people who want us to be healthier to the earth, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, and I don't say anything against this. It's just I don't like extremes, and so I don't like the whole. And I say liberal, but I'm liberal in things too. I don't mean liberal. I just mean the extremists of where we must save the earth.
Tree huggers.
I think that's perfect. Tree huggers. I think that's extreme, but I also think there's a big power in that where they can use that to expand their agenda so that they're saying this is what we need to do to save the earth and make it better and everything. And so I'm worried that's just they've become more powerful, they've gotten on the bandwagon, and that they are manipulating the scientific or they're manipulating this mountain of evidence. The mountain of evidence you guys have seen.
Well,
is it a mountain of evidence, or is it just you've heard it from the people who are saying the things?
But it's different from when you're hearing like the tree huggers. That's like the political speak.
Right.
It's like, what's a green job? All I hear about is green jobs.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole
California has all these green jobs,
and the carbon footprint thing, and all that.
That carbon footprint.
There's a lot of crap that comes out of that.
But I think what people with the real issue with climate change is, I mean, to me, there's no doubt about it that the world is getting warmer, but it's the extremists that put panic in everyone. You got the tree huggers that are going like, you got to save the planet or it's just going to go to hell tomorrow. Then you have the other extreme where it's like completely nothing's happening, where they're denying everything.
Well, I always say if you're a fanatic, even if you're right, you're still wrong.
Well, you're hitting upon something that's a very good point, Joey, because I think the reason why the debate exists for the most part is that there are very strong economic and political agendas on both sides.
A lot of money.
And I'm not going to deny that. It's just that I think that if you really do step back and look at the trail of evidence, you're going to wind up on the side of science, I hope. Because science works and it tends to prove itself and disprove itself. You also mentioned the thing about the fears of ice age in the past. Mm-hmm. Well, that theory was proven to be wrong.
Right.
So this is evidence of, what if science were religion, like some people claim? Mm-hmm. We'd still be talking about the ice age, despite the evidence of global warming. Because what we would do is we would ignore the evidence, the vast sea of evidence that global warming is happening, and say, no, we believe in an ice age coming. So your evidence is crap, and we just keep believing what we believe. No, but science corrects itself over time.
And one of the main reasons I wanted to do this episode was I had a feeling that when we brought up global warming last week, or climate change, I thought you guys were all going to be in the same place I was, because that's where Kayla and I were before. And Daryl, I've always kind of seen you as more conservative, even though you're kind of in the middle now. So I thought, and that it was.
I'm a liberal now.
Liberal, okay. Whatever. Yeah. The thing is, it surprised me that all of you guys were looking at it this way. And so I wanted to know, are you guys all just jumping on the bandwagon like everybody else, or is there really something to say about this change? Now, the thing is, I know you guys follow skeptics and are big into being, following the skeptic people who review things. So if that's what they're saying, I'm willing to trust them and your opinion.
Instead of using a term that can be maybe misapplied like skeptic, I'll say critical thinking.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah,
science-based belief.
The thing is, and that's what makes
science-based rational thought, not belief, because belief is the wrong word.
That's why I was so surprised when that happened. But that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think that if you guys who are very critical thinkers and pay attention to other critical thinkers who are in the media and in the news, and if this is what you're seeing them saying, I'm more likely to believe you guys and believe them, because I'm more of someone who will listen to people who think critically.
Well, let me make a quick argument about one thing that I've seen, or I thought was a powerful argument even before I realized how much of the preponderance of evidence was on the side of global warming. one of the ideas that I've heard proffered is that trying to fix things like air pollution is actually going to be good for everybody, because smog does kill people, especially affects the young,
especially hobbits.
So yeah,
nice. That was good though. That was one of the most intellectual and smartest jokes ever on this program.
If I'm Dick Man, he's Tolkien Man.
Yeah,
he's gotta work in.
My hairy feet prove it.
That was good. I like that. So,
hairy palms are from something.
I'm having a Joey.
Smog kills people.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, right.
I'm an expert.
Remember what the smog was like in the LA basin when we were growing up? Like, we had these smog alerts, and I was like, okay, we can't play outside.
Yeah, I was actually.
Your eyes would actually burn a little bit from the air pollution. The thing is, it's not like that anymore.
No,
and
it's not.
We've catalytic converters on cars have done miraculous things. Some cars actually clean the existing smog out of the air.
Daryl, let me.
That's the positive effect of all this investigation.
So this is why it's a win-win, because basically trying to clean it up does help people anyway.
Okay,
so why don't we try?
Okay, here's I want to go into how I was thinking that too, and also but an argument against it helps people and why it might be a problem. Okay. First off, before last week, the only argument in my head was that what you just said, and I was going to mention it, was that. Because, like I said earlier, I always believe how we can't affect like the world. But I did see exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Growing up, all of us in the San Gabriel Valley, we had smog days where the smog was so bad, the air pollution, because the San Gabriel Valley would catch all of LA's dirt polluted air, and we couldn't go out for recess.
Mountains would hold it
in, and we couldn't go out for recess. If you went out and ran, you would hurt your lungs. It was horrible. You couldn't. We live, kind of close to the mountains here, and we couldn't see the mountains sometimes because of the smog. Now the thing is, since then they've added taxes to the gasoline to pay for cleaning up the gasoline to make it different gasoline. The catalytic converters, like you were saying, all this stuff. And it's worked. And that's the only thing I've seen the environment affected by legislation that has happened in California. So that I agree with. And that's always been kind of in my head going, well, maybe this global warming thing, maybe we should do something about it. Now, going on to you said, well, it helps everybody if we do it. I think, so I'm going to go under the assumption now that let's say there is something happening and we can do something about it. What I'm worried about is because it's so political is that there's a lot of economic problems that could happen by people who don't know the facts.
But here's one thing that about the economic thing though, is that gas is one of the main things. I think that there are a lot of interests that want to keep us basically on oil forever because it's a profit center for so many big companies, right? And I'm not going to blanketly illustrate them all as being evil, but they are there to make money, right? And in a capitalist system, if you have shareholders and you're a publicly traded company, your mission is to make as much money as possible, right? And to make big profits. So if they can make bigger profits selling us oil rather than switching us to cleaner things like natural gas,
hydrogen fuel cells,
solar, wind, whatever. If they can make more profits continuing to sell us oil, then it's their responsibility to their shareholders to do that. Okay, so I'm not necessarily saying it's an evil practice. However, it might be a little misguided in that it's not serving the best public interest, right? So all that being said, I think that we're finding out that we can have new industries sprout up, and companies might find ways to be more profitable, even if we start switching to cleaner energy technologies. Because, for one thing, what is all the marketing that we see from every place? It's all about green this, green that. It's such a
even
popular
from the oil
thing
companies
right now. Exactly.
Even from the gas.
Now, whether or not they're acting like that behind the scenes, that's their public face.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they can bring in more customers and more money by marketing green.
We're sorry.
Right? Yeah, it's kind of like, we're sorry for that spill in the Gulf.
Yeah. It's from the South Park episode.
Your politics.
Sorry.
I just want to read this to you. This is from procon.org. Of one of the pro issues on climate change is that nearly all climate change studies show humans as the main cause, and studies which contradict the claim are often funded by petroleum companies, making their conclusions suspect. In 04-05, Exxon gave $2.2 million in grants for climate change research to organizations that deny human-caused climate change. In 2006, U.S. Senators Olympia Snowe and Jay Rockefeller chastised Exxon for providing more than $19 million in funding to cover 29 climate change denial front groups.
Here's the problem.
So there's money everywhere.
Here's the problem, and this is going to get way into philosophy, but this is the 1984 problem. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you tell me this, and they're like, oh, yeah, but who wrote that?
Right. Exactly.
How do we know that is based on something? And even if it's somebody who's...
It was on the internet. It must be true.
But the thing is, even if it's someone who's... even if it's someone who is, somebody who can be trusted, they still might have an agenda or a side.
Right. Yeah, there's always who did
But that's the whole 1984 problem, like... You can't trust anything anyway.
To play a little devil's advocate to that, I mean, the flip side of that is, you know how I said there are economic interests, and I illustrated that? There are also political interests, and I think that groups like Greenpeace are actually fairly politically motivated to be anti-industrialist. Okay?
Luddite.
That's my personal take on them, and I've seen things that seem to support that. And again, I'm going to qualify this just like Joey was qualifying earlier. This is my personal take on it. But I do kind of see them as a group that wants us to go back to a simpler time, and they tend to be against things like genetically modified foods. They want us to get rid of energy sources and things that are easy for us to obtain right now.
I stopped giving them money when they started protesting nuclear power.
Yeah, there we go. So, I mean, they are against some things that make sense, but they seem like they're pretty much focused on being anti-industrialist. They want us to go back to our roots and maybe be a pre-industrial society again. At least that's my take.
Freak that, man.
Right. So, it does work both ways, and you can have an agenda.
On the flip side, from 1998 to 2009, nearly $25 billion in federal funds was allocated for climate science research. So researchers who question human-induced climate change often do not receive this grant money for research projects. So there's money on. You don't know who to believe. And there's money everywhere.
And I think that's what's when politics and get in front of a scientific issue. I think that really clutters the water. No, that's not.
Muddies the water.
Muddies the water. You can't really see because you don't know who's telling the truth. You can't take a stand. And honestly, what's got to happen is what I would be worried about is that already from this conversation, I'm already starting to change my view because you guys have are believing this, and also you're skeptics or what was it? Critical thinkers.
Critical thinkers.
And I know you read critical thinking stuff, so I know you've looked at that stuff. Also seeing the eye sample thing, that graph, I'm assuming that's accurate and from a critical thinker. That also makes a lot of sense. But so now what my worry goes to is climate change if climate change is happening and we're causing it, my worry is that the policies being made are not going to help because the people making the policies are not informed about what's really going on. They're looking at, like you said, Daryl, the correlation between things, and they're creating things like was it the carbon footprint crap that was going on and
carbon credits?
Yeah, carbon
so
credits.
You can buy credits.
And then there's like the CARB, the California Air Resource Board is, from what I've heard, is very strict on businesses and almost to the point where it's absurd what some businesses have to do to meet certain standards. Now it looks like these types of places are making policies which are hurting society and not helping the climate change issue, and that's I think what I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm. Well, climate change, I keep going back to this, but climate change is happening. It always happens, whether it's getting colder or warmer. Climate change is what the Earth does.
Yeah, that's another good point.
Yeah.
So the point is the global warming that we are causing is affecting us, and that's what we're concerned about. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, if we affect it too much for ourselves and we say we kill ourselves off, the Earth will do its course.
We can potentially lose miles and miles of coastline. All around the entire Earth, and that would, in some places where they have pretty shallow lands, it would,
in some
nearly the entire country.
In some places,
so it has a big fallout.
And you know what?
Well, okay, but
the animals would actually move away from the water.
Well, that's what I was going to go right to that. What do you say? is there would be some places where that would be a problem.
Except the
like
people
I know
in the southern
Bangladesh
states,
is,
maybe
I think,
not.
one of the places
It'll be the government's
where it's
fault.
like, or not.
Move my house!
But that's exactly. But what Kale said is perfect. Nature understands when environment changes, and they change with the environment.
Right.
And humans were going to have to do the same
Nature
thing.
finds a way.
But do we really want to do that?
Well,
You know what
we
I'm
may
saying?
not have a choice, and that's the
It's a
whole
lot of money to do that.
The idea, that's just it. And the idea is climate change is probably going to happen anyway, whether we cause it or not. Is it better that we put all this money and effort towards trying to do something that doesn't matter, that doesn't change anything, and just further other people's agenda,
Well, it's like,
or just
okay,
move when the
or
coast
what
gets
if, what if your house were burning around you? Would you just not lift a finger, or do you grab the fire extinguisher?
or
Well,
do
see,
you
that's
get
the
out
thing
and
is
go get a new house because you're
Well,
not
because
qualified?
okay, so let's all go to Mars.
No.
You see,
Okay.
that's what I mean. It's like
have ice
you know,
caps.
I want to go.
This is the thing.
I'll sign up for that one-way
It's
trip.
a little,
Mars,
it's
do
a little
it!
bit of guesswork to understand how big of a problem it is and how reversible it is. But the thing is, if you have like a fire start in your kitchen, are you going to sit in the living room and watch the smoke accumulate, or do you do something about it? That's kind of like where we are with this global
Collect
warming
insurance
issue.
money.
And I think
Depends on
that
how much caffeine
we
I've
don't
had.
need to break ourselves
I can get up off the couch.
to get there. And like I was saying earlier about some of the industrial aspect of this, I mean, it's becoming an industry of clean energy. I mean, there are a lot of new jobs being created. There's actually good boons for the economy that we're dealing with this issue. I don't think it's all a negative.
Okay, but let me take your example.
It's not a zero-sum game.
Let me take your example and change it a little bit, because I don't think that was a good exact metaphor for it. I don't think it would be there's something in the kitchen on fire. I think there's a strange smell coming from inside the wall. And it could be something that could be dangerous. It may not be something that's dangerous. It could be nothing. How much are you going to I'm not saying ruin. How much are you going to affect your life, possibly in a negative way, to fix it if it may be nothing? I think is a better way of looking at it. Because obviously, if there was smoke coming from the kitchen, we're going to do something about it. But right now, it's not like that. It's not obvious. Like you said, it is conjecture right now. Even though there's a lot of evidence, it's still correlation. And it could be something else. So the question is, we could do something about it, but do we have the ability to do something about it? Or should we just...
But I think we are doing something about it.
Well,
I think,
we are.
I don't think it's just because of climate change.
Right.
For like the alternative energy, the electric cars, all that other stuff. That's not just because of climate change. It's because of gas prices.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's because of how much money we're spending on foreign oil, and as a group, as a country, people getting pissed off. So we're putting research into all this alternative energies to try to get some of that money back or make things cheaper. It's also part of a front where I don't think it's going to change the world. It's not like everyone's going to have an electric car tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But it's just going in that right direction. It makes people feel better.
Well, yeah, you bring up a point about people feeling better about the situation. I think that some of the things that are happening are kind of like a Band-Aid on a wound that's too big for that solution, and it just makes you feel good that you're doing at least something about it. But even things like electric vehicles, we've gone over that before. I think we were a little one-sided when we talked about them in the past, but I mean, they definitely are cleaner than doing a gas engine right inside the car. A little more efficient also.
Yeah. But isn't more carbon output created making the electric car than what
that's
it would
true.
have been
That's another thing about
making a gasoline
that's
car?
an argument against solar too, because you have to spend so much carbon energy creating the panel in the first place. But the thing is, they typically have about a 30-year service life, and they recoup their initial investment in about the first 10 or so. And when they get more efficient, it'll be less than that. So
I wonder if we're going to listen to this in the future and think of it.
Never.
No, yeah, that's right.
Will we all be underwater?
Can I finish?
This is going to be archived.
Can I finish? Can
No.
I finish?
No.
Can I finish?
Hey, can
Okay.
I finish? I'm Dick
Okay,
Man.
I'm done. No, I was going to say we're going to listen to this in the future, and will we be listening?
You're supposed to finish last.
Carbon is the thing that's
always
like
happen, though.
the big word now, where it's like, oh, carbon, we got to fix this. But if you guys also remember, it was the ozone layer before. We haven't heard anything about the
we
ozone
fixed
layer.
it though.
Well, oh, because we fixed it. All right, I wasn't sure about that.
I mean, that's one thing too. I remember being skeptical of hearing about the ozone layer all the
Right.
time, because that was like my parents were always like, "Oh, everyone's talking about that, and it's a myth." The thing is, though, I wish I were more up to date right now about the entire story, but my understanding is that we actually detected the problems.
Oh, really?
We knew
Okay.
what to do about it, and we solved it because a lot of it was caused by CFCs.
Yeah, look at the change of the hairspray and the spray paint.
We
and all
changed
that.
out the propellants we used.
Yeah,
and it actually, everyone was like, "Oh, look, the ozone layer's repairing itself."
Well, it's like having we used to have lead in paint. People eat it, get brain damage and all that stuff.
What? Huh?
When we had lead in paint and stuff, and kids
would
eat it, get brain damage or whatnot.
Right.
Okay, well, we changed. It's like, oops.
Yeah. I think what surprised a lot of scientists was that the ozone layer was so capable of rebuilding. Because we were finding these gaps and everything, and then all of a sudden when we controlled the use of all the CFCs, it suddenly just got better. It's like, oh, where are the holes now? And that's why we don't hear about it.
All we got to do is South Park has taught us, just like AIDS, you just got to sink a shitload of money into it, and that's what fixes the problem.
I have not heard anything about that, and I usually hear about those things, and I haven't heard anything about that. I mean, I'm not doubting that that you've heard that. Yeah. I'm just saying I'm surprised I haven't heard or seen or read anything about that, because the last thing I heard is that what they figured was it was a cycle that we were going through because of the sun, and we went through that cycle, and so the holes closed up.
So the Earth was on its period.
Okay.
So, like I said, I'll look at that, and maybe we can make a pre-ramble of it.
Some research would be useful.
Yeah, like I said, because I don't know. So I don't know if you're right or wrong.
I'm making vague recollections about things I've heard some people say. So
it's that interests me. I'd like to know that.
Evidence, but
all right.
See, I qualified that one.
The
too.
cycle is now complete.
Well, and if
when you met you, we have a hole in the ozone.
If it's like if what Kale said is true, and maybe this is just a cycle, then it'll just be one of those things where everything will be fine in the future. But speaking of cycles, I believe that, if I'm correct, during the Middle Ages, we started that was the end of the mini ice age, was it?
Yeah, that's when it occurred.
Or that's when and we're at the end of the mini ice age. So there is already automatic warming happening right now anyway, cycle-wise. The Earth is supposed to be warmer? Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Well, we are in a warming period naturally as the climate changes.
But isn't it because we're coming out of a mini ice age from the Middle Ages?
Well,
I thought that was what
it depends on how long your time period you're talking about.
Right.
If you're talking about a very long period, like millions of years.
No, I'm talking about.
Speaking of very long.
Thank you. Good. You get a raise.
Nice
that if you look at, we had this little mini ice age.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of mini,
but it was just. The global warming was still continuing from the end of the actual ice age.
Your ass, man!
Well, no, and I'm talking about the fact that the Earth's temperature is usually higher than it is now, but what we're used to in modern times...
You're saying we're regressing to the mean.
Correct.
Okay.
I heard that somewhere, but once again, I don't know what side that was on. I had heard that the mini ice age...
Well, that's definitely on the side of the people who are saying let's not do anything about global warming.
Okay.
We're
the problem is that the artificial temperature change that we are creating is causing a problem for us, and that's why we should be concerned about it.
That's a good point.
There's an article that came out today in Nature. I was reading it,
and even if this was totally non-anthropomorphic, we would still be, like you said, we're facing this dilemma that we're going to have. If we have the power to reverse it, then maybe we should try.
You know why I think I've got such a bug in my head against this is because if you watch shows from the 80s, which is when we all grew up, and I want you guys to think about this, because I just remembered...
A bee in your bonnet, Harry?
Yeah, shut up. I just remembered Michelangelo, that's a turtle.
Michelangelo.
Michael Jackson?
Michael Angel, touched by an angel. Where did he touch you?
Michael
Right
Knight.
there. No.
Oh, the dude from Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, him.
Michael Landon.
Michael Landon, thank you. Okay, what was his show?
Touched by an angel.
No, that wasn't his
Highway
show.
to Heaven.
Highway to Heaven.
Highway to Heaven.
There was a Highway to Heaven.
It was also touched by a priest.
Touched by a stranger.
Well, no, they had that on Family Guy.
Touched by a teacher.
We now return to Touched by an Angel, and they're in a courtroom, and he says, "Where did the angel touch you, Billy?" And Billy goes, "Right here." And the angel's like behind the desk with his lawyer and says, "That's a lie. I didn't touch him there."
What the fuck?
Pretty
So
good.
what's happening to global warming?
No, what I was saying though is that in Highway to Heaven there was this episode, it was a Christmas episode where he goes to the president in a dream, and he talks about the future, and they have this apocalyptic future where people can't even get water because all the water's polluted, and it's just horrible things that are going to happen in like the 2000s. And the thing is, the 80s were full of that type of thing. If you guys look back to some of the shows that we grew up with, it was like, I remember, and this is a big one, overcrowding. I remember the Star Trek episode, and this wasn't even in the 80s. This was from the 60s. There's a Star Trek episode where they land on the planet that's so crowded, nobody can even move around. And so the one lady gets in the ship and she's just dancing all around.
So they've been to Japan.
Well, and because that was one of the fears, was overcrowded because we're growing so quickly as a society. Now, I grew up in L.A., and in L.A., you've got city after city after city. There's no big openings between cities like in most places. When I left L.A. in my high school years to go on a trip around the U.S., oh my God, there's so much room out there. I was like, why are you worried about overcrowding? There's like 100, 200 miles where there's nothing. Right. And it's that type of thing where when I was a kid, I was more like, oh, we need to save the planet because in the 80s it was so, by 2000, this is going to happen. We're going to have a heart, and you can't breathe. You can't do. So did we fix all that like we were saying?
Well, you're saying there's a lot of FUD out there, and I'm not going to contest that.
But what I'm saying is that there seems, I don't know, maybe there was more in the 80s and none of it came through. Maybe it was so much, it's just like, but then science was less back then. So.
I remember things like Eddie had this special called Cadillac Desert about how all of Southern California was going to run out of water, and it was this like thing. He was like, "Oh, you have to see this," and it's like a lot of reporting. It's just a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and that's
duck and cover.
Yeah. It's much like there's more pedophiles out there now.
At least it shows that there are people concerned about the issue, and I think that. And what they often miss in reporting things like that is, here's a potential problem that's coming up. What they're not counting on is how ingenuity is going to try to solve that issue.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So, we do have occasional drought periods. We do have water shortages in Southern California, but we also have a much bigger population than people foresaw. Yeah. And we're still doing okay. Because we engineered the problem away.
And I guess, you know what? That's, I think, probably for me, where I really land on this, which is kind of what Kale said, but a little bit different. Kale said if the water's rising, the animals move away from where the water's rising. The thing is, whatever happens, we're going to adapt to it, because that's what we do as a species.
Well,
and we're going to figure out what's going on.
I think that's the right move about handling global warming, is that we need to engineer that problem away.
Right, and we need to adapt.
And that's what we're doing.
And I guess
exactly.
I guess the reason that I've, in the past, been so against it is because I've been hearing a lot of the people on each side, and especially on the global warming side, you've got very much the people saying it's like it's an emergency. We have to fix it now. We have to do this now. And I'm like, no, it's not. Look, there's all those things in the 80s. Everything was fine. Well, and then on the other end, but you're right. On the other end, they're saying let's not do anything. The fact is, we're going to be fine. Like, we're going to adapt.
People focused on fixing it then. That's the thing. Like, I think you need to have a certain amount of the workforce looking at this issue.
But I think what needs to happen is that it's got to get to the point where it's bad enough and visible enough that it needs to be fixed.
Right.
And people see that it needs to be fixed. And until you get to that tipping point, it's just going to be a back and forth.
But there are some problems that if you wait until you see the drastic signs of change and effect happening, it might be too late to do much about it. Like it's like an ounce of prevention beats a pound of cure.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily...
But if you look at human nature... what you always get is you get the ambulance at the bottom of the hill. You don't get the fence at the top of the hill to prevent people from crashing and
right, and then you get the lawyer chasing the ambulance.
But I think
you always get that.
I think that the people that are seeing this as an emergency, that want to see it now, it's because they want to see it. They have 80? Let's say they have 85 years left of their life. Yes, they want to see it. It's instead of looking at a grand scheme where it's like we're taking these baby steps. Yes. We may not see the result, but our grandchildren will. Our great-grandchildren will. It's going in that direction. But of course, we want to see it now.
In a way, almost they want to see the stuff go bad so they can fix it right now.
Well, that's what everybody. It's like
space
nobody
travel.
On the street buys a home alarm system until somebody gets broken into.
Right.
And that's human nature.
And to go back, Daryl, to what you said is the whole ounce of prevention thing. It'd be great if we could do that, but that's exactly the problem right now. Is I think that. I don't want to be one of those people who is trying to push this agenda, even though it might be accurate and correct, when the world's not ready for it. It's like there will be casualties, there will be problems, but that's how the world works. As humanity, it's like we don't take steps to do things until there's a reason to take steps to do things. And I think jumping on, I feel like I don't want to jump on the bandwagon and try and push this because I just don't think it's the right time.
But I kind of think that's part of the thing that will define a future society, though, is that we will have the foresight to prevent things. Like, think about...
A more advanced society would do that.
Well, and at this point...
All right, Paul.
At this point, I mean, it needs to be a global initiative. Right. We can do something. The U.S., Canada, Britain, everyone together. But are we going to make North Korea do it? We can't make them. China?
So I want to roll in a point
Somalia?
about how big data is being analyzed. Because this is a kind of a new concept on the internet.
Start fresh.
Just how you can take metadata about people. You don't have to know specific people or whatever, but you just recognize trends that happen. And there are things that analyze things like Twitter feeds. Like certain days, people put out more negative tweets than other days. And they do like a language analysis on all the tweets. And they find out that this sometimes coincides with like different events that happen around the world. And the thing is, you can start to spot trends. Like if you see a bunch of negative tweets coming out from, say, a country like Egypt, it might be a sign that they're on the verge of a revolt, right? So if you use big data in a wise way, including about the climate or about people, you might be able to start doing things like preventing wars from happening. Like when you know what the signs are that everyone around the world or in a couple of countries has a certain tone in all their communications, that might be a sign that these two countries are about ready to wage war upon each other. You can step in and intervene and possibly change the course of what's going to happen at that point.
You know what?
And I think that's going to define the future of humanity.
And I think that's brilliant, and I think it's going towards the singularity, and I think it has to do with technology.
And the singularity will fix all of this.
Right, well, yeah.
But we're worried about
But that's what... But,
Carbon does not affect the computer.
but that's
okay.
But that's what I'm talking about is that what if you're saying, like, we need to be able to stop this stuff and do whatever we can to stop it. The problem is like back when we thought there was going to be an ice age. What if we had spent all these resources to try and stop it and then there was nothing? Or what if with the ozone? What if it was just a cycle?
There wasn't a huge mountain of evidence for that either.
Well, and I think that is. But that's what I'm saying. As we move forward in technology, like you're saying, we can start to predict things better. Yeah. And so, I think that we're moving to the point where maybe it will be, where within a time span where we can make a difference, we can do something about it. I don't think we're quite there yet with global warming.
Yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet when there are more people believing that the rapture is coming than global warming.
And the methane from the cows.
I think the rapture already happened. It's just that it didn't take anybody.
Cow farts.
No one was pure.
No one was good. It's like, Jesus is like, all right, rapture. Hey, guys. Where's everybody? Damn it.
All my children have fallen.
It's funny, they talked about all the methane coming from all the cows that we've now that are around, that
we have to build more now.
But
breed more.
What's interesting is that back before we had all these cows, we had all of these bison, we had all of these other wild animals producing the methane at a great, almost an equal level to where we're producing it with cows now. Oh. So that part really isn't making a difference.
How now?
The cow thing is going to get worse, though, as the population grows, because agriculture is just going to grow along with the population to keep up with feeding everyone.
Well, and if we don't have enough cows, people are going to ask, where's
I think it always it's going to come down to the
beef,
point
Daryl?
where...
In my pants!
There we go!
Woo!
I think we are at a point where we have to start...
At least.
We have to start actually managing the planet.
You know what? Italian. I actually like what Kale said.
So
half Italian.
I like what Kale said. I think that I think that we we're looking at the beginning of a movement towards being in more control of the planet as we become able to control the planet more and making good decisions. And I don't think we're there yet. But I think this is a good example. I'm looking, like I said, you guys all surprised me last week when you said, you believed or you whatever thought that climate change was happening. But I think it's exactly what's going on. Is slowly people who are rational thinkers are starting to see that this is something that is really a problem. It's not enough to make the changes yet, But it will be, and as we grow as a society and as the human race grows, we're going to have to start to be responsible for things like the planet.
Well, I think you make a good point there, how all of that is, if anything came out of the 70s and then the 80s where we learned about like what the cars were doing, with the smog and all that other stuff, is people are aware now. Where before we didn't have battery recycling areas to throw our batteries and now our phones and everything, and the e-waste and stuff. It's not just thrown into landfills and stuff.
Okay.
It's recycled. So people are more aware of our carbon footprint and are just trying to do something about it. So as long as it's that whole thing of like, if everybody does one little thing, it'll grow into something better.
Well, actually, that I wanted to bring this up too. For those of us who've grown up in the last few decades, how many of you have really a hard time throwing an aluminum can in the trash?
I know I have a hard time all the time.
Thank you. Good.
Bam!
But do you have a hard time throwing aluminum cans in the trash? I know I do.
Yeah.
I really, whenever I do it, I'm like...
But I don't care about throwing plastic or glass away because you get crap for that, dude.
Well, that's kind of what it is. The thing is, I grew up where you saved your cans. If you don't save your cans, you're not saving the earth.
No, I saved the aluminum
cans. But you know that here, I know with Waste Management that picks up our trash, they recycle everything at their plant.
Right.
So and that's exactly it.
They do it for you.
Right.
It's not so much. I almost agree with Paul saying that it's not so much the individual, although that's where it starts, but it's when it becomes at that tipping point where, okay, now the trash collectors in the cities are actually have the technology and have the ability to separate the trash and recycle what they can, to the point where in the future maybe they'll be able to recycle everything.
Yeah,
and
especially
that's
if it comes down to nanotechnology or something like that, they could just like go in there and use it all for raw materials. So that takes care of your trash problem.
Yeah, no kidding. And the progress is just as it should be. There's those people who are starting a movement.
I had a movement before I came over today.
Wait. He can be Tolkien Man. I'm Dick Man. And you're going to be Fart Man.
Fart Man?
Yeah.
And Joey is Ass
You've
Man.
always got the... Or you can be Scat Man. Because you've always got the scatological... Yeah.
And so...
All right, Steven Tyler. 3, 2, 1.
I think we're moving in the right direction. I don't think I want to jump on the bandwagon of, I want to save the planet, oh my gosh. But I also don't want to be a denier of something that science is obviously showing is pretty straightforward.
Look at where, Waste Management, they're recycling their own trash. Okay, why? Because they make money off of it. Things are changing, green jobs and all that. Why? Make money off of it.
Exactly.
So it's things will change as long as you make money off of it.
Right, and I'm not one of those people, this stuff's not real, this stuff's not important to me in the sense that I'm not the type of person who's like, I will be the one person that makes the change. I will start I'm not like that. I'm the type of guy where I go, I'm not going to do this because no one else is doing it.
No, but grass...
it's like, I'm going to do what's working. And if I see that, hey, everybody's doing the recycling because the city's doing it, and they're saying, I'll be part of that now. But I'm not going to be like, because I feel stupid being the only one doing something. I'm just not the type of person.
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower!
A movement isn't one person, you're right. But the thing is, it has to start somewhere. It's kind of like, I think it's like the same thing about getting out the vote, right? An individual voting doesn't make the difference, but it's about the general feeling of people. If you get 70% of everyone to show up at the pools instead of 60%, then you did something.
Then you have a pool party.
If they for elections and stuff, if they just did elections like they do American Idol, everybody be voting.
That's true.
Well, no,
text in your
here's
favorite.
Wait, real quick. Here's my thought on
Ryan Seacrest hosting it.
Think about the fraud.
Here's my thought on voting though, and things like that. And I believe now that we've got the ability to see more of the world out there, statistics is weird. Statistics says that if you get a certain amount of people, you can predict a larger amount from that random sampling, and it's science. It really works. And because of
like
that,
the Nielsen ratings.
It's that type of thing exactly. And so, because of that, and because I've seen the internet and the people out there, I feel I'm making a point here. Damn it! I feel that I represent a certain portion of the population. Now, how big that portion is, I don't know, but I know if I'm the one.
Baby.
No,
no, it's not.
Not your job.
No.
I figure that if I'm someone who's not getting out there to make these changes, there's a group of people like me who are also not doing that.
Right.
But there's also a representative population that's Daryl. And so if Daryl's the one making the change, there's somebody out there doing it.
Holy crap.
So not
the world's depending on me.
Daryl.
You matter, Daryl.
Yeah. You matter. Wow. Thank you. The tear just came to my eye.
That was me spitting. Sorry.
No, that was because I farted.
My eye.
And Paul. Then you got to say a joke about the tear in his eye. We all get it.
Was it sticky?
Okay, that wasn't really where we were going.
What did that have to do with scat?
I don't know.
Hey, we passed the hour. All right.
Hey, 4 guys in a cup.
Okay, so
4 guys in a cup. That sounds really bad, Paul.
All right, so to end up, I think you guys have convinced me that climate change is definitely a viable theory that is probably
global warming.
Probably happening. Global warming, whichever one you're going to call it. Or they're different. I don't know. So you say climate change isn't happening. You just say global warming's happening.
I think
climate change is always happening. Maybe.
But global warming is happening because of us.
So, but the key is climate change affected by global warming? But yes.
Ooh. What do you say to that?
But the
I don't know. I didn't understand that language.
You know, you were worried about us having time on this one. There were actually a few. I think there were like 3 points I was going to make that we never even got to. And
well, we spent the first 20 minutes just
I guess
talking about crap.
We were just f***ing around.
Oh, no. At 106.
Okay, you're f***ing now.
Okay then.
I don't have anything to say about that. I like that idea.
I'm scooting over.
So
Go back to your phone. God damn it.
Ooh,
I'm gonna go into Godwin's law here though, since that was one of the points.
Go ahead.
I think that like denying climate change is akin to the like Holocaust deniers. Yeah, because they just want to throw out a big swath of history and say it never happened. It's kind of like the same thing I illustrated about the evolution versus creation people. It's like that's my Godwin's law thing.
I disagree though.
I'm now making the connection with Hitler.
I don't think it's
You
that
just
big,
actually said Hitler? Did you just bring Hitler into this?
I did. Godwin's law.
There is true global warming because as we speak here and we produce more carbon dioxide, it's getting warmer in my pants.
Okay, yeah, that's true. But no, Daryl, I don't think we're at that point. I think that would be like the Holocaust did happen, but we're at the point where it's like a year or two after World War II, where you're hearing about it and people are saying it's true and other people are saying it's not true. Or with evolution, we're like in the 40s or the 30s where this is what it's supposed to be, but there still hasn't been enough backup for it.
Well, I think the point I'm making, despite bringing up Hitler, is that the point is that it's blanket denial of science in my book.
But I think there's more science in
my little finger than in all the rest of your book.
I think there's more science in both evolution and the Holocaust, if you want to call it science, that it
that would
happened.
be data, I guess.
Data would be better than there is. It's just the global warming thing has just not been known about for long enough. So I don't think you can directly compare it yet. But what I'm saying is, if it does turn out that that's the situation, and there will be that much in the future,
sure.
In the future, you could compare it exactly the same. I just don't think there's you can compare it yet.
All right.
I think you're believing in the future you'll be able to.
Could I bring out a quote?
Go.
From a fictional character. In fact,
the
same one.
As long as it's not from Hitler.
The same one. No,
Oh,
you're saying he's fictional. You denier.
And it brings it around.
Good.
All right, I've quoted this guy before, so here we go. Let's be clear. The planet is not in jeopardy. We are in jeopardy. We haven't got the power to destroy the planet or to save it, but we might have the power to save ourselves. Ian.
Thank you, Chewie.
Malcolm from Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park.
I like that. That's how I feel.
Very nice.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I think some people might say the whole planet's in jeopardy.
No, we're in jeopardy.
That's how I've
always lifestyle.
I've always loved that quote because it basically says we don't know how to destroy the planet.
Yeah, I agree.
At least not with our current technology.
I agree with that completely. I've always been on that opinion. You cannot. I used to have this thing that said "Save the humans" on my wall because that's what it is. It's not save the Earth. It's save the humans. Because the fact is,
the Earth has actually extincted 98% of the life forms.
Made a new verb.
Extincted.
I'm going to extinct you.
I had it extincted before.
Yes! Yeah. He's on it.
Dickman, Flatulent Man.
Scatman.
Oh, Scatman. Yeah. Why Scat?
He's the Scat Man.
That's
because it's
That's
scatological.
poop.
Oh,
poop
poop.
scat.
And you know that Scatman Crothers actually did the voice of Jazz
Did he?
in Transformers, yes.
Wow, Prime! Wow, what's going on? Oh, Prime!
And then he died after the movie, and he was only in one episode after that. And then...
That's probably why. It's because he was so good.
He was.
Sandstorm, what do you say? Oh, I say I'm Sandstorm, a Transformer.
It is not but. It is Optimus. But Prime!
That was very good. But Prime is my cousin. We don't talk about him.
In fact, he's my second cousin to Shank Prime. I don't know.
Shard
They're in
Prime.
the porn industry.
Oh, man.
Shard Prime.
Vagina Prime.
His sister.
I just want to say vagina.
Prime Pussy.
Jeez. Pussy Prime. That sounded like a Hot Pocket sound.
Hot Pocket!
It could be Hot Pocket.
Yeah.
All right, we're totally off the rails now.
Ballpark Franks. They
I like the pork fields.
So, Daryl, do you have a choice for next week?
Oh my gosh, this is my choice. Shoot.
You are just so not prepared.
Which dick do you want?
Okay, wait, I had a few in mind that I want to go with. Even though we've been focusing a lot on technology, I guess I'm going to go with Internet of Things.
What?
Internet of Things.
What is that?
It's about how, with IPv6,
Number 8.
there's actually enough IP addresses to, like, take the whole West Coast and give an IP address to every grain of sand on the beach shore, okay? Now, it's trillions and trillions and trillions of addresses available now. So the idea is we're going to have embedded devices and everything interconnected, and we're going to have
Everything
a mesh
will go
network.
Online.
Right, like a mesh network of everything. Like your clothing could freaking be online because it has integrated circuitry that checks your health.
Right.
That sounds fun.
Tells you when it's dirty.
Okay, save it.
Yeah,
See,
when you're about to blow your load.
We got it.
Yeah.
So we're basically saying we're moving from the idea of having a couple devices per household or a dozen devices that are online to hundreds, if not thousands, all over the place. All right, it's going to be a new world.
All right.
It's a brand new day and the sun is high. All the
Because of the
angels
smoking
sing
crack.
because you're gonna die.
How did the sun get high, Joey?
The best
All right, this is Joey Shamble. You can find me at IamRambling.com. Hey!
I'm Paul Hunter.
Paul's a disruptor.
Sorry. You can find me at, until global warming destroys the server, heyitspaul.com.
I'm Cale Anderson. You can find me at romsrants at blogspot.com.
The server is contributing to global warming because it's using
That's
all
true.
that electricity.
Your
All right,
computer
I'm
room
Daryl.
is
That's
freaking
right,
global
it's true.
warming.
I'm Daryl. You can find me at jors.com, GIORS. And Dead Space.
This is like the most depressing thing
Please.
we've had.
Please listen.
Please listen for our new segment at the end of this called TLBT. What was it?
TLDL.
TLDO.
Too long, didn't listen.
And it is.
So, Daryl, you got to put something here at the end.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do it!
Oh!
Am I just going to sit in front of the mic and go, hey?
That works.
Bye, everybody!
Bye, see you next
See you
week.
later. Hey, where's Booker?
Prime pussy.
Thanks for listening. You can now stop screaming at the open air. Listeners should put their minds back in their upright positions and resume traditional thinking. Find us on IamRambling.com for access to all of our weekly ramblings, show notes, general discussions, and any projects from Incoherent Ramblings. Like us on Facebook and rate us on iTunes. So long, and thanks for all the fish.